Welcome to the Chicos, to the Chicas. Welcome everybody. We are on stream, but we are recording now a YouTube video in which we are together going to analyze an absolutely sensational game. This game was played by two legends of the game, Jonathan Tisdall in the white trunks against Tisdall-Agdestein in the black trunks. Obviously the black player is very famously known to be Magnus Carlsen's coach at one point of Carlsen's career at least. And also Agdestein is one of the very few chess players in the world who managed to make it into his country's national team in two different sports. One was chess, of course, and he was also part of the national squad for football, incorrectly known as soccer in a fairly large part of the world. So that is a tremendous feat. Especially considering the fact how high his chess rating was at his peak. He was a 2600 plus GM, so to accomplish that is nothing short of sensational. Without spoiling too much in this game, he's going to be on the receiving end of some beauties, but nonetheless, yeah, being a national of two different sports is quite tremendous. I think the only other one I can think of now, and that might not even be the right example, is Croatian Grandmaster Bojan Kurajica. I think he was a weightlifter. But whether he made it to national level or not in weightlifting, I'm not sure of. Anyway, so the game we are going to look at is going to feature the Catalan defense, which of course is a very popular opening nowadays, especially on top level chess. And the Catalan in general has a reputation for being a positional, maneuvery type of opening. And this game is going to be a beautiful example of why it is a false concept to try to put certain openings into particular boxes. Because in the end of the day, we're playing chess, not necessarily an opening. And depending on how we approach the position, it can turn from positional into incredibly sharp scenarios easily. Let's see how this one happens to end up. That way, D takes c4, and in this position nowadays, the top grandmasters usually opt for either queen c2 or queen a4, and then we have got this very, very long and well-known variation of b5, queen back, bishop d7, yada yada yada. Long theory, and not a lot of fun. But our good friend, Grandmaster Tisdall, who is an outstanding chess author, by the way, and I'm getting this book, this game from one of his books, which I probably will review later on. Yeah, he's an outstanding chess author, writes in a very engaging and at the same time very funny manner. So he played in this position knight a3. Now this motif is very, very common in many Catalan variations, but also with reverse colors it does appear in some Sicilian variations as well. White's idea is that he wants to provoke bishop takes a3, ba3, which completely changes the landscape of the position in every possible way. For starters, the c4 pawn is almost impossible to regain now, so we can completely write it off from White's perspective. Additionally to that, our pawn structure got really weird with the double A pawns, which aesthetically speaking are not exactly candidates for a Miss Universe contest. On the other hand, what White has gained is a lot of exciting dynamic pluses. First and foremost, the two bishops. This is tremendous. Secondly, almost inevitably, we will be able to play e4 and obtain a large center. And on top of that, courtesy of the double pawns, we will also have access to a semi-open B file. So these are the pros and the cons. And now it is time to continue looking at how this game proceeded in the opening phase. And I am going to send a shout out to Lauren, my top favorite admin, no, mod in the chat. So, knight c6 was played, bishop b2 was played, and knight d5 was played. This move is a little bit iffy. Black is trying to relocate the knight to b6 with the sole purpose of backing up the pawn and or to play b5 and then knight b6. Either case, the idea is definitely to establish a queenside dominance. Now, the only issue with this move is that it's easy to foresee that A, it walks headfirst into e4, and 2, that once that e4 kicks in and the knight is Gonski from d5, one can't help but notice that the black king side is rather abandoned, and that might encourage us to cook something over there. Let's see what happened. We played queen c2. May or may not be necessary. e4 was good to go as far as I'm concerned, but we will let this slide. Not a biggie. e4, knight b6, and here we played the very, very logical rook a d1. I always say this in my YouTube videos and in my coaching sessions too, that A, bring all the boys to the party is definitely one of the greatest sentences that Yasser Seirawan has ever said, and he has said a lot of very cool things about chess. And 2, and this is perhaps more important, is that when you are looking at chess games played by the greatest masters of the game, what you find is that what they do so incredibly well, first and foremost, is to do the basics really well, which is central control, development, and bringing everybody into the game. And people overlook this incredible skill because it appears obvious and it appears so seamless that we tend to just go over it like, ah, yeah, whatever, let's get to the point. And we very often fail to copy this so important part of the game and the skill in it, which is to play an opening with the necessary dedication and the right mindset as well. So, rook d1 was played. Obviously, white is gearing up for various central thrusts. Queen e7 was played, and now it was time to break the position with d5. Note that it's very logical to aim for a central break, since we have got bishops firing down on both long diagonals, so tactical opportunities almost by default will arise once the breakthrough happens. This was precisely the reason why Agdestein, he decided to not engage with the tension, but to simply drop back. Now this is a remarkably ugly move, without a doubt, but it also poses a challenge to white, which is what do you do? White responded with rook fe1, because once again, chess principles are so important that we always want to follow them. By the way, I would like to show you something that is really cool here. When black played knight b6, they actually hinted a threat here with knight a4. Which is very easy to overlook, but it's quite obnoxious when it lands on your board and it catches you unaware. Because let's say I play a pass knight a4 and all of a sudden the diagonal proves to be too short. And we certainly don't want to drop back to c1. And funnily enough, rook a d1 resolved that problem too. Because now after knight a4 I can easily drop back to a1 without any compromise whatsoever. So, game went rook d1, queen e7, d5, knight d8. Rook e1, knight a4. Now things have changed, of course, because now the d4 square has become available for the bishop as well, and that was actually played. I don't know if I would have preferred bishop a1. I think it's both possible, but bishop d4 doesn't seem to be bad at all. Of course, what it means is that we are sacking yet another pawn. And Agdestein, who, according to the author of the book, was known to be a bit of a pawn grabber, did not hesitate to go after the juicer and took on a3. Now, the first thing I want to show you here is another aspect of Grandmaster chess, which is going to blow your socks off here because it's absolutely insane. And that comes after the moves e5, h6. Note that a lot of lower-rated players would be extremely reluctant to even consider e5, let alone playing it, because, ooh, it blocks my bishop in. This is a little bit of a curse, so to speak, of having two bishops, that when you open up the diagonal of one, you very often must shut down the diagonal of the other. So you have to sort of measure up what's right and what's wrong, or rather what's more important. But here e5 is actually fundamentally not even about opening up this diagonal, but opening up this one. And forcing, or rather threatening with knight g5, which in turn is going to force a fair few weakening moves on the king side. I have got a remarkably itchy nose, and I don't know why, but it must look very unattractive that I keep on rubbing it. Sorry about that. So yeah, e5 was played with the threat of h6, knight g5, excuse me, therefore h6, and now I go back to Grandmaster Chess. So earlier I pointed out to you the development part of what Tisdall was doing so beautifully. And once again, by the way, I would like you to take a look at the white position, because if you would like to know what an optimal position looks like, this is what an optimal position looks like. Full development, beautiful central control, and the black pieces are all over the shop, and the fact that black is 2 pawns up, no one cares about. However, here, Tisdall played the extremely good-looking rook e3, but immediately afterwards he adds that he actually here had an idea, or later an idea occurred to him, that I find absolutely beautiful and sensational, and that is rook b1. Now, if you see this move, you would be like, what? Like, how is that? Like, why? Like, we have a beautifully developed rook covering a central file, and we go to rook b1. And this is where calculation kicks in. Because Tisdall spotted an idea, which is nothing short of a genius in my opinion, and this is how calculation always overrides positional concepts. And his concept here with rook b1 is that if I defend b5 with a move like a6, then comes the absolutely incredible d6 with the idea of trapping the queen next with rook e3. Wow! Now that just came out of nowhere. Absolute nowhere. Like, let's say I take rook e3, c3, rook b3, and the black queen is trapped. Now, if you ask me what distinguishes a grandmaster from an international master, this could be a good example. That this level of depth and thinking outside the box and be able to justify a completely outlandish idea of rook b1 by proving it to be correct, because actually it's not outlandish at all. It's a genius of trapping the queen after d6 and rook e3. Now, these types of things can easily be the difference between an IM and a GM. The idea doesn't work, but the mere fact that it occurred to him and he backed it up with this marvelous line is just so beautiful that I couldn't help but show you as part of this video. He, in fact, ended up playing rook e3, which is actually the better move. But this too requires a fairly great deal of foresight into what is about to come. Queen b4 was played. Queen e7 was perhaps the better one, but it allows, in fact, almost invites d6. And it looks really dicey for white, especially after take, take, queen takes. I've got all kinds of bishop discoveries. Bishop g7 would decide the game on the spot. Instead, Agdestein went queen b4. We kicked the queen again, and the queen went to a5. And this is one of those classic cases that I really like to show to my students when I encourage them to look at the board and split it half in their head between the D and the E file. And what you will find then is that black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces to the value of about, I'm not going to do the maths, but it's about 20 points pieces. Actually more than that. 25 points of pieces on the queen side and almost nothing on the king side. Now, if we contrast that with the white army, you can claim that the queen is on the queen side, but it's actually aiming toward the king side. And so we have got almost every single piece, probably with the exception of the rook on d1, aiming toward the king side. That level of discrepancy must result in some kind of a tactical conclusion. Oops, I forgot to turn on the noises for this YouTube video. Sozinho. Myth, welcome in. And here white came up with an absolutely sensational idea about how to mobilize these pieces against the kingside attack. I would like to encourage the YouTube viewers to pause and also the Twitch viewers to reflect on, because they look awesome, right? Like we're all, whoa, awesome, let's go kingside, kingside. But they kind of awkwardly placed. Like it's not like this bishop can partake in the attack. The knight seemingly can't. The rook can't do the lift. So what about an idea or a move here that would allow us to bring all that in without losing too much time? Any ideas? If not, I'm going to tell you. So white's move here was the absolutely insane g4. Now, there's nothing particularly, you know, genius about the move other than the way how it engineers the position in which the pieces can, in fact, partake in the kingside attack. And that looks like this. ED and knight g5. This was the genius concept that of course allows now white to bring almost all pieces into the attack. The rook is going to come here, the bishop will come here, the queen comes here. It just looks like, tada, Carnage City. And here Agdestein actually failed to find the correct defense, which was to accept the sack and play g6 instead, which led to an almost immediate demise. But I would like to show you the coolest lines in the HG variation because it is just sensational. HG5, rook h3, and here after g6, e6, we can pretty much put the pieces back in the box because this mate is only stoppable by moving the pawn up, which in turn allows queen g6 mate. So that is all over Red Rover, and therefore the only move for black here to avoid the immediate catastrophe is rook here. And now we have the check, king f8, and at this point, instead of getting greedy and taking this, which would force the king to safety, we are going to take on d5, bringing a new attacker. Now that comes with a big fat tempo, but it's well worth asking yourself at this point, what's white threatening with? Well, primarily to take the rook, right? But if I play a pass, and that's always a good test of the pudding, then now I have got check, king here, and queen takes with the idea of check and an oncoming mate to follow. So e6 is threatened. Let's actually just have a look at how this would win with e6. This is looking like a marvelous finish. And now the idea is, of course, check and mate. So let's say that I take this with the bishop. Bishop takes, bishop check, king here, and bishop b7 to deny the king's escape toward c8. And this is now going to lead to a marvelous checkmate. King e8, queen takes f8, king takes f8, and rook h8 checkmate. Now that was nothing short of sensational. Did white see this when they played knight g5? 100% not. I can guarantee you that. But they did see the position until bishop takes d5, and their evaluation was that this attack absolutely must break through given the number of attackers versus the non-existent defenders. This just has to work. The most beautiful line is actually provided here in the book, and I'm going to show you this because this is nothing short of absolutely sensational. Tisdall-Agdestein, the coach of Carlsen. So the most epic line is going to go with knight e6, I think, here. Bishop c6, yes, that's right. Bishop c6, watch this. King e7. And here we have... Uh-oh. Wait, why do I have a knight on b2 in this line in the book? Let's go back a bit. Okay, work with me. So bishop d5. Right, I'm an idiot. Okay, bishop d5. Now, I've got it. So, knight e6, bishop c6 is fine. King e7. Bishop e3. And here he offers the line knight b2. And this is going to turn out to be absolutely bonkers city. And the move that he recommends here is the incredible queen takes g7. Now, can I encourage again the Twitch chat as well as the YouTube viewers to pause and figure out how white has a forced mate after knight takes g7? It actually is a lot harder than what it looks, because there is a particular line that looks to work, but it doesn't. It's a really, really, really cool mating pattern. Bishop takes g5, you need to be very careful with, because although f6 is going to lose further material, it also is going to ensure that my king will be safe on f7. So I'm going to show you this because I think it's well worth just seeing it. The idea is that after bishop c5 check, king e6, bishop d5, whilst is tempting, is actually not going to lead to mate, because both king e5 and king d7 will eventually slip away. There's a beautiful mate motif here with rook d4, but this is not going to happen, because in this position black has king f6, and once again the king slips away. The idea, and this is very difficult to foresee in my opinion when playing queen takes g7, the idea is that, strangely enough, this is one of those cases where, at least my brain works like, I don't want to believe that this is possible, because I feel like the knight should be able to interfere. But in fact, there are just too few squares between the rook and the king, so that the g7 knight is perfectly unable to offer any support whatsoever in stopping the mate. And so after king takes e5 comes a marvelous collaboration amongst the remaining white 4 pieces. Rook d5 check. Now king f4 or king e4 doesn't make any difference against either. You play rook d4 check, and when the king goes back to e5 comes the coup de grace, rook e4 check mate. Wow! That is just wow. If you score a checkmate like this, let alone scoring a checkmate like this against a 2600 plus GM, that's, I think, a good time to just print the score sheet off, frame it, put it on the wall, quit chess, you know, start something else. Because it won't get any better than that ever. Yeah, rook e1 wouldn't have worked because the queen is covering that. This was an absolutely sensational finish to this attack. And the previous checkmate was really, really remarkable too. Welcome in Purple Frags. And now I'm going to show you how the game ended, although that is going to be absolutely mundane compared to all of these beautiful variations. So Agdestein played the g6 without capturing the g5 knight, but frankly, there is nothing to talk about here. After bishop takes d5, now even the bishop, the light squared bishop, is well and truly in the attack, in fact allowing white to create a mate into threat. So after bishop d5, black played queen a6, and now we can finally work on the finish off, the final touch. So once again, the YouTube viewers can pause the video here to find the cleanest win. Chat, you are also encouraged to throw in your 2 cents. I'm going to now reveal the big secret. In the game, e6 was played, of which David Bronstein, after the game, made a comment, and I'm going to quote now. The move was described, quote, as shattering all the doors, windows of the position. This splinters the furniture as well. Now, here the author is a little bit partial to himself, because e6 is actually not the best move in the position, although one could argue what could be better than a move that triggers instant resignation. The idea being that after knight takes, you just take with the rook. And if bishop takes, you take with the bishop. The reason why you choose this order, so that in the end it's the bishop that lasts, not the rook, although even there is an argument for that, because the bishop keeps the pin on the f7 pawn, and therefore there is a mate threat on g6, which can't be parried without queen takes. But then again, this is a little bit of a making us look cooler than what we are, because bishop takes, rook takes has the exact same effect, in the sense that if the queen goes anywhere, I take on g6 and it's mate. So either or. Funnily enough, the engine is not interested in beauty, and the engine tells us that bishop takes f7 is actually a forced mate, because if knight takes, then we play e6, and now there is no way to stop this. The engine is a really cruel thing. What if knight h8? Ah, we just take. Yeah, well, see, this looks a lot more mundane, but it's a lot more effective. At least according to the mighty machine. Either case, it's a very basic finish to a marvelously conducted attack, which had a lot behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm very glad that I found this game to share with you guys, because this is one of those cases where it just looks like one side completely outclassed the other, but if you look at the players and their respective ratings, you go like, wow, this had to be a battle and a half. And as so usual with these attacking games, the best things were hidden behind the scenes, and this is why you always want to read books that have games analyzed in them, because then you uncover these beautiful variations, and they are just a sight to behold. So that was the extremely epic Tisdall against Agdestein chess game. I'm very glad you guys tuned in for this one. Please don't forget to sub, to like, to super thank me, and to comment below if you can. I'm now waving goodbye to the YouTube, but the stream carries on. Cheerio. Bye.